with Mr. Professor Josh Turner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wait, here we go. Professor Josh Turner.
Thank you. Autographs after the show.
We have special guest, skeptic, but open-minded skeptic, Mr. Chad Duncan.
I'll try.
And I, of course, am the True Sasquatch. So, phone lines are open tonight, folks. The number is 817-506-7257. Give us a call. Let us know what you think about. We got an interesting show.
We do. We're gonna start what will probably be the first of a two-parter. And tonight, and maybe even next week, we're going to be looking at the possibility of prehistoric survivors. Things not only left over from the age of dinosaurs, but from potentially the Ice Age.
He was looking for his microphone.
I was inspired by your Jedi.
Namaste. But I also
And then paint the fence. You got to paint the fence up.
But I'd like to take a few moments early in the show and address something. And this is something that... Okay, got it.
It's right in front of you.
This is a question that's been posed to me a few times about when this particular topic will be addressed on our show. And I've always kind of walked on eggshells around it. And, you know, I try to be respectful of those who have differences in opinions than I do. But with this one, I'm going to have to take a stand. And I take the stand for what I believe is the integrity of this show. Because on this show, we examine unusual phenomena, animals that may or may not exist. And we do it with a tongue-in-cheek approach sometimes, but we also take it with a certain amount of academic seriousness, with a certain amount of intelligent discourse, if you will. Well, the question that's been posed to me a few times is, when are we going to address psychics? And are we ever going to have psychics on this show?
No!
And that's the simple and short answer. Johnson County Paranormal will not be addressing the psychic phenomena, be it legitimate or illegitimate. Here's my reasoning for this, and please, Sasquatch, Chad, feel free to chime in at any time, but my problem with psychics, if you have a gift like that, if you have an extrasensory ability like that, you shouldn't use it to make a fast buck.
I knew you were going to say that.
There you go. See? You may be a psychic. You shouldn't use it for profit.
Not for evil, you should not.
No. Do or do not. There is no try.
Man, I got double Yoda. No shit. Oh.
I'm not going to do my nails.
All right. Anyways, let's bring this in.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Because
Why should someone not... If someone thinks that they are...
If someone... Go ahead.
Here's the deal, especially in this county, you can't... It's like me and my cousins. You can't throw a rock without hitting one.
No. You absolutely can't. And the thing is, you can't have a paranormal investigation. You can't have someone wanting to go look at ghosts and saying, hey, would you like to come with me and let's go into this haunted house? Without someone who has alleged psychic abilities coming along and wanting to play Ghost Whisperer, wanting to play the little boy from The Sixth Sense, the kid that sees dead people.
Okay, here's my take on it real quick. I do believe there are some people that have this ability. They have the ability of sight. Paranormal sight. I know, Chad. I
believe there are people with sight.
But
I'm just not one of them.
Supernatural sight, or
extrasensory ability. Someone that has someone that has a sixth sense, if you will.
Exactly.
Something that is beyond the scope of normal human ability.
However, as of yet, there is no scientific way to prove they have this ability. To a point. Now, every Joe Blow can go out there. Everybody, I think, has the ability to have a premonition or
Yeah.
or be able to see something. Open your mind up enough to see something, because we only use about 10-12% of our
Well,
brain.
actually, we use more than that. That's a popular misconception that's kind of been carried away with the media. But yeah, we use a lot more.
10-4.
But
Some of us don't.
some of us don't. I mean, hell, it's Johnson County. That's ugly. I'm sorry.
I burned that part.
What we're and we will actually get into a little bit the legitimate psychic phenomena, because there's a fair amount of evidence for stuff like that. But where we will not go, we're not going to talk to people that can see and hear dead people. We're not going to visit with one of those psychics who's going to ask us questions like, is there someone in your past who was a woman and who had letters in her name? Oh my gosh, there was. And tell me, did that person walk on two legs? We're not going to play into that sensationalistic, parasitic, for-profit psychic phenomenon.
Okay, so can I?
Please.
You're ranting, but can I interrupt your
Sure.
rant to give you? I alluded, and this is an honest to goodness, true story.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not a psychic. I'm. Sasquatch said I'm kind of a skeptic.
Sure.
Open-minded skeptic.
So let me tell you a scenario that did happen
Okay.
to me. Okay, I lived in a dorm.
Okay.
That part's true. Bruce Hall. Okay, University of North Texas. I left that morning, and this is the '90s, so I'm gonna confess I wore ties when I went to my job, and it was those thin leather ties.
Yeah.
Okay, and I hung them all on the towel rack.
Okay.
And so whenever I would come home, I would take off whatever colored tie, because I had multiple colored leather ties,
Okay.
and hung them up. I took one. Didn't matter what color I was wearing. I just put it on because I didn't want to. When I came home, I took off my tie, and I went to hang it up, and all of my ties were gone. Now, as I tell that story, you've been like, well, big deal. They were in the closet. Okay, here's the problem. I didn't have a roommate. The other closet was locked because they wouldn't give me a key for that one,
Okay.
because that would be for any roommate that I would have. And that door was now unlocked, and all of my ties were in that closet. I never got a roommate. This was on a Saturday, so there were no RAs on duty. How did my ties that were always put on the towel rack in this closet that has always been locked but now is unlocked, but are now
Well,
in
that's
that
more of
closet?
a supernatural
Yeah,
experience
and-
rather than a psychic.
And that's what
experience.
I was going to ask is, how does that, which does sound like a poltergeist, that's a ghost type that you don't see the manifestation of the ghost itself, but you see rather what it does. I'm like Kevin. I'm not. How does this tie into psychic phenomena?
Well, I mean, so is Johnson County Paranormal? Would you discuss something like this?
Yeah, we will discuss
Oh, yeah.
something like
Definitely
that,
something
because
like that.
we'll definitely look into precognition. We'll look into
Yeah, we're talking more of the people that come up to you and say, your grandmother wants to speak to you from the other.
So Ouija boards, that kind of
there
stuff.
will absolutely be no Ouija boards.
Oh, that's a
affiliated with
doorway
us.
to evil right there,
Yeah.
brother. That's open. That's not good stuff.
We will not mess
Ouija
with those.
boards. That is bad stuff.
So in this situation this scenario that honestly goodness happened to me,
Sure. Oh, and we believe you.
and I don't believe in ghosts, but as soon as I told somebody down the hall, they said, "Dude, that was Wanda." Now,
Who's Wanda?
Wanda. According to legend at the University of North Texas, Bruce Hall, they literally would have Wanda Lives parties or Wanda Lives concerts about Wanda, who supposedly had hung herself
Okay.
somewhere in that building, up on a floor that we would not have access to.
All right. So Wanda's a ghost.
Are they real? Are they real? I don't.
Oh no! Yeah, no.
No, we're definitely gonna be talking about stuff
We
like
are
that.
definitely going to talk about ghosts.
And if you can get us in that hall, let's go do an
Yeah,
investigation.
we will definitely talk about ghosts, but we're not going to talk about this. Help me out here, Kevin.
Hello,
the
the
psychic.
Miss Cleo.
Hey, man! Your dead grandmother, she's standing behind you. She want to tell you where the gold is,
Okay.
man.
Okay.
I should have seen I was going to go bankrupt and die.
Yeah, we're not
Unless
doing
I
that.
pay you.
And
Okay.
let me tell y'all a funny story. All right, for years when my museum was open, and a couple of the people that are listening now were members of the paranormal team that we had. When we would do investigations, we would always have these people with alleged psychic abilities who would seek us out and who would want to be a part of our investigation. And with one notable exception, the lady who introduced us to Emma, every single one of them that we ever dealt with was a fraud, a phony, and more of a pain in the tail than anything else.
They concoct the most wild stories, and we'll let them go. We'll know the story,
Oh, yeah.
the actual truth behind, and what we're actually, and we'll let them go. And we're
And it's
chuckling
great.
inside.
The best one, because it got to be such a problem. I developed a litmus test for dealing with psychics at the museum. Because when they'd come in and they'd be like, "Oh, I have this ability. I can see into the past. I can talk to ghosts. I can feel when they're around." Really? Okay. Well, let me ask you this question then. What I would tell them, I would say there is a specimen in my museum that has some extraordinarily bad mojo attached to it, bad juju. And I said, if you have the ability that you have, I want you to use your gift, zero in on the specimen or the artifact that I'm talking about, and pick it out, because it radiates evil. It radiates power. Find that artifact for me. Bring it to me. Tell me what you feel, and I'll believe you. And I did that a dozen times. And every time I did it,
It was a different object.
it was a different object. And they picked everything from fake Tyrannosaurus Rex teeth to fossilized petrified wood to the replica of my Sasquatch footprints.
Oh yeah.
But my absolute favorite one, and this, I wish that I had recorded this, because this would have been a great YouTube video. There was a psychic out of Granbury, and she had her, what she called, basically her lesbian life partner with her,
okay.
who served as an anchor.
Oh, the
to her.
Birkenstocks. Oh, sorry. It's okay.
who served as an anchor. She was her rock. She was the one that would kept her from getting swept away into the metaphysical world.
Okay.
And I presented her with the same task. I said, if you're legit, find this object in my museum, bring it to me, tell me what you feel. That will prove it to me. That's a vaguely scientific experiment. It's not an unreasonable request. Please. You're in my home. You want to become part of my team. Perform this simple task for me and let me see what you can do. Well, this particular specimen, human, not the artifact, this lady walks around the room 2 or 3 times, finally zeroes in on a piece of Mayan pottery. It was a chalice, roughly 6 inches tall, couple of 4 or 5 inches wide. Beautiful piece. Picked it up down in Central America the last time I was there. She picks it up. She holds it in her hands.
I'm proud of that comment.
Picks it up, holds it in her hands, and just starts giving me the most beautiful soliloquy I have ever heard. She tells me, she says, "Oh my goodness, Professor, this vessel here, there is such power that radiates off this vessel. This vessel knew great happiness. It knew great sadness. It was in the home of a Mayan noble. It saw tragedy. It saw this. It saw that." Sasquatch, she rambled for 15 minutes.
Wow.
And
There's a lot of power.
my partners and I were sitting there. They knew the gig. They knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there at my desk. I'm looking at them. They look back at me, and I just grin. I put my arms behind my head, kick my feet up on the desk, and just let her go. And I tell you this because I let her finish her story. Because I did not have the heart to tell this lady that I had paid $15 American for that genuine imitation piece of Mayan pottery from a Chinese man on the Belizean coast. And it's funny, as a psychic, she didn't pick up on that, but boy, she got everything else.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know. To me, there are so much other worthy phenomena and creatures that we can talk about, as opposed to dealing with people who, are in it to make a quick buck, or who are in it to scam people. Now, that's not saying that there are not some legitimate cases, that there are not some legitimately gifted people. But those are needles in haystacks.
It's so weird that you're going on this, because I just heard about a commercial that's recently, I forget which state, but they're saying that they are going to deliver the results or they'll give you your money back.
Okay. I wonder if that's the California psychics.
I think so.
Because that's a big, and they're supposedly very reputable. That's what we ought to do one night. Call into a psychic hotline.
That'd be cool.
It might be a little expensive. I wonder if we could get somebody to pay for that.
I don't know. But let's hold that thought. We'll dwell on that after this commercial break.
We will be right back. Thanks for listening in. And if you're a psychic,
Hey, read him my 2 comments that I did.
Kevin said, any psychic abilities, please call someone else.
At Owens, we want you to
All right, we'll get into prehistoric survivors
And
after
I give the phone number out on the next bill that
Know
says,
what you want.
for other inquiries and questions.
Oh, you're going to do that one you got me on?
Biggest name for your
Oh, the
Dude, I was so worried because I was like, man, you didn't have your show.
is that the same one you gave me?
Yeah.
I was like, oh no. I'm like, he must, I got to call, make sure you're okay. And I'm like, I'm at work.
Now, Christy Young says, please call one. That would be hilarious. Christy, we will absolutely do that for you in a future episode. Absolutely.
Well, I think the California one's not too expensive.
I've actually called the California one a few times, and it's like one of those other numbers. It charges by the moment, by the minute.
Right.
Like the first 10 minutes are free, and then it's like $5 for each additional minute.
Okay.
And they know how to play you. They know how to talk kind of slow, so you have to pay for those additional minutes.
Look at him.
I wonder if we can find out what the average charge is. If the average charge is, and if it's not too bad, I'll do, what, 5 minutes? 10 minutes?
Yeah, probably 10 for a viable.
Okay.
I know some other 900 numbers we can call.
I do too.
You have to do that. Do those up to 9 o'clock. Oh, wait, we're on internet radio.
Lucas Gymnastics.
Call them and go, what I like on my french fries.
I like them French fried taters. You got a pretty mouth, boy. I want another piece of pizza.
Who am I going to kill with this here hammer?
Someone said that they were driving, and they said they literally saw someone that said Sling Blade Lawn Care, and me because I can do the voice fairly well. Was that us coming back? Nope, that's the sign company.
Oh, we got a little music interlude right after this to bring us back in. I'm using mine because for some reason I'm going to have to work on those files for this.
Your mole man is gone.
Yeah, I can't figure out where it's going.
Different flash drive?
I like the Mole Man song.
Some stuff got moved around and turned off, and me and Matt's been working on trying to get everything straight again. And so you got some cool rock intro and outros for from the Sasquatch show.
Now, tomorrow, are you guys still doing Cruising with Tina Lynn?
We're doing a replay.
Because you all have the wrestling show.
Yeah.
Wrestling?
Wrestling.
Wrestling?
And we're back with Johnson County Paranormal. Caught the professor with a little bit of pizza in his mouth.
All right, so I'll follow up on and let you finish. Okay, so that was 1994 that I had that moment.
Okay.
And to this day, if it were a goof, if it were a prank, I'm still friends with some of the RAs. Nobody ever went, dude, we've been meaning to tell you all this time. We got you. So I legitimately believe that is the one experience
Well,
where something happened that honestly that door had never been unlocked.
okay.
They would not give me a key since I didn't have a roommate, and at any point I could have a roommate, and so they would not allow me to have my stuff in there. So all of a sudden, all my ties are in there in the same sequential order that I had normally taken them off behind a locked door. But it's now unlocked.
Your Wanda sounds a lot like my friend Emma. So, Emma was and he wasn't in here. He wasn't here.
I don't think so.
No, okay. Emma was a ghostly school teacher that used to be at the institution where my museum was,
And we're Advanced Professional Wrestling debuts tomorrow night in the gym of the old Irving Elementary School on North England.
and that's all the press I will ever give those people.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. Because there's a whole episode there. All right, but let's get back because the professor is putting his soapbox away, and we're going to talk about tonight's topic, and that is prehistoric survivors. Now, prehistoric survivors, it's not that unheard of. There's a fair amount of likelihood for these animals because
Well, that could tie in with a lot of what we talked about last week. Loch Ness Monster, Champ.
Ogopogo's real.
really?
I look-
Okay, so you've come back on that.
Ogopogo, they had Dead Man's Party. They had Weird Science.
Oh.
They were in back to school. So Ogopogo is real.
Okay. It's a dead man's party. Who could ask for more? Who could ask for more? Caught me with my mouth full again. Well played, Jed. All right. So, the first one that we're going to get into is something that's actually very well known to the Native Americans and has even seeped into popular culture for, to a certain degree. We're going to talk about thunderbirds. Now, a thunderbird, that's just a generic term often used in cryptozoology to describe large bird-like creatures generally identified with the thunderbird of Native American tradition. Now, similar cryptids in the Old World are often called rocs. Now, in the story of Sinbad the Sailor, there is a creature that he encounters called a roc. And a roc is a gigantic raptor, a gigantic predatory bird.
Like
hawk.
a giant gold eagle.
Yeah, like a
or
giant gold
something
eagle.
Like that.
But this bird was so large that Sinbad talked about them carrying off elephants in their talons. And Marco Polo actually wrote about these things in his travels.
Who?
Marco Polo.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say Marco.
There you go.
All right.
Marco. Oh.
And, of course, Marco Polo's stuff was discredited several years later, and he basically wrote that as a travel log, an adventure story.
So
But
the Thunderbird has nothing to do with the Phoenix?
Not the Phoenix would be kind of a similar, maybe even related cryptid, something that's similar but different.
That's more mythology.
Yeah, the Phoenix has a lot more mythological and even kind of a spiritual element to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more getting in the realms of the Greek gods and stuff. Roman gods tie in and all that stuff. Like
And
that.
the Thunderbird may even account for your cactus bird sightings
It could be
because they're not. I mean, that's not a dissimilar creature at all.
So, are these featherless?
Sometimes they're not. And let's get into that. A small number of researchers theorize that they may actually be surviving large pterosaurs, like Pteranodon or Quetzalcoatlus. Now remember, pterosaur is the fancy word for pterodactyl. It's any of a great number of winged reptiles that were alive during the time of
That could
dinosaurs.
be little Archaeopteryx.
Yeah, well,
style.
Archaeopteryx is technically
Oh, they had feathers.
a bird. But pterodactyls, and that's what I'm going to call them, just because that's what I grew up calling them. Pterodactyls range in size from. They actually know of a hummingbird species of pterodactyl now. They range in size from hummingbirds through grackles and seagulls, up through albatross and pelican-sized, to my favorite, the Quetzalcoatlus, which was actually the what we think
The
it's
B-52s.
it's the B-52 of the. Actually, he's more the size of an F-16, but he was a pterodactyl that was the size of a fighter jet. That's a 40-foot wingspan.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about him, with Quetzalcoatlus, scientists pondered for a long time, all right, here is this giant, obviously carnivorous flying reptile. What does this thing eat? Because his remains were not found in the same kind of sediments that all of the other pterodactyl fossils had been found. All of the other pterodactyl fossils had been found in marine sediments. That's rocks containing the remains of fish, sharks, aquatic organisms.
But for a creature as large as
Quetzalcoatlus.
Yeah. Marine, they're going to have to eat a lot of fish
Oh, yeah.
to sustain themselves.
Which leads us to the next two theories as to what Quetzalcoatlus ate. The best theory is that he kind of flew around and acted like a giant vulture, because in the sediments where his remains were found, there were lots and lots of other there were lots and lots of dinosaur bones. There were lots of terrestrial organisms. So the theory that scientists came up with was, okay, maybe this guy was the vulture of the dinosaur world. He flew around and he looked for big dead animals to eat, because there would have been ample amounts of that.
Okay. That makes sense.
The next theory, which is kind of cool, and I think the next theory may be even scarier than a giant vulture. Quetzalcoatlus, when he would land on the ground, pterosaurs walked around like bats. They walked around on all fours, because they've got hands in their wings. They've got claws upon their wings. When he could walk around on the ground, he stood 18 to 19 feet tall. That made him as tall as a giraffe.
Oh, jeez.
That let him look eye to eye with the other dominant carnivore in his environment, which was Tyrannosaurus rex. So the other theory is that maybe this guy acted like some of the African storks do. He walked around and he actively hunted small or baby dinosaurs. Because again, this thing is almost 20 feet tall. Right. He's more than capable of killing something small and, taking off before something even bigger or the right size or the same size gets after him. It would be it would be really interesting to see one of these things in life, because I don't think we'd know exactly how it would behave, because our theories are just all over the place for this thing. And he's one of the both him and the Pteranodon. And Pteranodon is what you think of when most people think of pterodactyls. That's the one with the crest on the back of its head.
That's more of
that's more
the
along
cactus
the lines of yours.
And what I'm thinking, okay, it's not near as big as that Quetzal blah blah thing you got going over here, but it's not little like storks and all that thing. This thing.
It says your mic's slow.
My mic is low. Okay, well, thank you. How's that? Is that even better?
Hey, Abby.
Well, the cactus bird.
Is that Christy from Scotland?
Is that our Christy from Scotland?
It is our Christy from Scotland.
Hello, Scotland.
All right.
Okay. My cactus bird.
Okay.
The one I've visually seen, of course it was dark, was standing up about 6 foot tall. The wing spread, I'd say probably 15 to 18, maybe 20 at the most. The descriptions that I've seen of the trio ranged from about 4.5 foot tall. The medium one be about 6 to 7 foot tall, and the tall one was about 8 to 9 foot tall. That was on the edge of that cliff that time, and so we're looking at medium size between Quetzal blah blah and
the little ones.
Yeah,
the little one would be. There's actually a type of pterodactyl called a pterodactylus, and that's one of the smaller ones. That's one that could perch on your shoulder like a songbird.
Okay, so here's my question. Is there in the fossil record pterodons or pterodactyls, pteranodons of this particular size.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's where most of the pterosaurs that they fall within that size range. And when they would be down on all fours, they would be anywhere from 4 to 8 feet tall, which is well within your range.
Chad, have you heard any of the stories we've talked about?
I haven't heard these, and so I want to ask, okay, with all of these different theories, what happened to them?
Well, what happened to them was the same thing that happened to the dinosaurs. It was a massive ecological collapse at
Yucatan Peninsula?
At the end of the Cretaceous period. We think, well, actually, the environment was already in a steady decline by the time that the Chicxulub impact happened. That's the fancy name for the Yucatan Peninsula. What happened was that this gigantic meteor from outer space,
2 miles in circumference,
roughly. That's ballpark. Slammed down into the Yucatan Peninsula at the
roughly
end
at the
of
southern
Cretaceous period.
edge of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this thing is massive. It slams into the Yucatan, causes huge tsunamis of boiling water out in the ocean,
Okay.
which really mess up all of the aquatic stuff. Probably charbroiled a few marine reptiles and all of that stuff. Causes shockwaves and earthquakes to go out for thousands of miles on inland. Not to mention the fact that they cause huge superheated forest fires,
Right.
caused by the impact. Well, all of those fires, which stretch out for thousands of miles, they put in super amounts of smoke into the atmosphere.
Well, yeah, and you got to look at too. This thing when it hits the water, it kind of vaporizes the water right there, and when it hits the bottom of the dam, it shoots up debris. It makes a crater impact that's still there. That it's part of what makes that area curve around there by Mexico look like that. But it shoots up debris so high into the sky that it, with that and all the smoke and everything else from the fires, it creates. It blocks out the sun.
So, and with the sun blocked out, I mean, plants, the sun is absolutely pivotal to the survival and success of plants, because plants,
Photosynthesis.
create their food through photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process of converting light into food. Well, if all of a sudden, and this isn't just for a day, this isn't just for a week.
No, it lasts
You're
for
talking this lasts for years. 20, 30, maybe 100 years.
Yeah.
That really puts a damper on the photosynthesis. The plants start to die off. Well, the animals that depend on the plants start to die off. The carnivores that eat the plant eaters start to fall off. So it's flicking dominoes.
And what survives? The little mouse.
The little mouses, the little animals. Because when horrible things like this happen in the environment, it's always the little animals that are most apt to survive and overcome.
And with that, we need to take a commercial break. And we will be back to continue
Yes, we
this
will.
conversation.
And the reason why I asked that is like, okay, if we're going to continue down this rabbit hole, I want to know what caused it in order for these Thunderbirds to
potentially have survived.
So I wasn't just trying to.
No, I know. And I like that. And that's and I meant to reach out to you earlier in the week. I really enjoy having you on the show. I was talking to Kevin about it. And I would like for you to become a permanent member of this show if you would like to.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Now is the time
Then
to start
you're
preparing
one of the
your lawn
family
for
then.
winter and even next spring.
Well,
Keep those
we're the
pet
triad.
weeds in check and
So,
promote thick,
this lady
lush,
from
healthy
Scotland
grass
is tuned
with
in?
our program.
So
The Lawn Tech program
She found
consists
us a
of
couple weeks
applications.
ago
Each
and then
application
stayed with us
is
through
6 to 8
Saturday
weeks
night
apart. Lawn Tech
through
is
Tina's
also a
show.
full-service
And
lawn and landscape
wonderful,
maintenance
wonderful
and
woman.
installation company.
well, we needed
Give
her
Lawn
to
Tech a
chime
call
in
today.
on Nessie.
817-825-3106.
But the question is, where in Scotland is she more of your clan or more of the Duncan clan?
Aha.
Well, that's a good question.
That we want you to be a part of.
Hey, Kirsty, if you were still awake, which I'm hoping you are, according to going by what she says on a message, tell us a little bit more about yourself. We would love to know about our international visitors.
I think she's a lowlander. Will we be the Highlanders?
Well,
There can be only one.
as much as I can kind of trace, I was looking over the Duncan clan, and I think I was Southwest, so I might have been a lowlander myself.
Well, I won't hold that too much against you. We still got some Celt in us. Because I'm also, on my mother's side, excuse me, I'm Irish and Welsh.
Okay.
My sister Amy is Welsh.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law.
But yeah, what's neat is
Absolutely gorgeous.
he got him.
Well, let's not jinx that. But
Yeah. He had. Let's just say he had a great day.
yes.
No. Oh,
Nope.
and we're coming back.
Thank goodness for intro
I
music.
know, right?
Don't you like how I preload stuff now? It's getting better.
So now we're
We're
live
back
on
on.
TuneIn and Facebook.
All right. So when we left off, it was a really bad day at the end of the Mesozoic. All of a colossal meteor has struck the Yucatan Peninsula. It's flash fried a bunch of the ocean. It's sent out tremors and shock waves across the Earth. It's really screwed things up ecologically. And the entire environment is on the verge of collapse. Now, when nasty things like this happen, it is the small animals that survive the best. Because small animals are adaptive. They're able to make do with what they can. They're able to do the best they have with what they got. Prime example of small animal success today, mice, spiders, cockroaches, grasshoppers, little stuff like that. Little animals that we have developed in entire industries to deal with. The things that survived the Cretaceous extinction were the little animals. They were the little forerunners of modern mammals. They were lizards, they were turtles, they were crocodiles, they were small fish, amphibians, all of this, the stuff that would grow into the groups that we have now. The bigger, more specialized animals, like the dinosaurs, the marine reptiles, the pterosaurs, those were the ones who were the hardest hit. Those were the ones who, in the vast majority of cases, went extinct. Now, I say vast majority because I am very much of the school of thought that birds are evolved dinosaurs. Birds are the direct descendant of Mesozoic era dinosaurs. Now, if some of these thunderbirds are indeed pterosaurs, if they're indeed holdovers from the Mesozoic, they must have been tremendous survivors. They must have found a safe place to hide out and ride out this ecological disaster that happened. And they probably became very adaptive. They probably became very specialized. And whatever they did seemed to have worked for them for 75 million years. And that's if this is a pterosaur, the way that we understand it. And some of these thunderbirds, these may be synonymous with other cryptids that we've talked about in weeks past and will talk about in weeks future. But I think there's another slightly more plausible explanation for thunderbird sightings, and to me, it's just as interesting as the potential of a pterodactyl surviving. All right, so reports of thunderbirds go back centuries, and the fossil record does show that giant birds actually existed. Not pterodactyls, mind you, but giant, what we consider modern birds. Kevin, if you can put your phone down on
Busted!
No, I'm messing with you. It's all right. All right, so in the fossil record, there was actually a creature called a teratorn. And teratorns were contemporary with early man. That is a picture of a teratorn called
Jeez, that is one.
Argentinavis.
It looks like a blue condor.
Yeah, it's a giant extinct species of condor. It's a vulture. Is
From
Chad? I wish you could see
Chad,
this.
from the head.
Well, you describe it for our listening audience.
Okay.
Yeah, from it has a little vision, and I would say this would probably be a man of about 5'10" stature, or maybe 5'5".
Yeah.
The head comes up about shoulder height when it's standing up. The wing spread looks like it would be around close to 20 foot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually the size of what we have seen down at our mountain down there by Big Bend National Park, what we call the Cactus Park.
But
Okay,
yours
so
is more
what?
reptilian.
Describe where's this picture coming from?
All right, the picture that
It's
I
an
showed
artist
Kevin,
rendering.
it's an artist rendering.
Okay,
It was
okay.
from a Scheinman and Schuster Encyclopedia of Prehistoric Animals. And Scheinman and Schuster Encyclopedia of Prehistoric Animals is a beautifully rendered, just what it sounds like. It's an A to Z encyclopedia of all manner of prehistoric animals. Everything from little tiny multi-celled creatures all the way through the dinosaurs into the Ice Age stuff. Really a spectacular book. And I mean, this is a great illustration. All right. Now, a lot of the more reasonable Thunderbird sightings actually describe creatures that sound a lot more like these Teratorns, a lot more like these giant vultures, giant condors, giant scavenging birds.
So you're looking through some things right now, but my question, my thought, I mean, I don't know if if I'm tuned into the listener, but I'm sensing from the listeners they want to know, what are the Native Americans?
Well, and that's what we're going to get into.
Okay. See, I was feeling it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Psychic ability.
There he goes. There.
The Native Americans associated these things with storms. They associated them with, bad summer rains, bad thunderclaps, bad things like that, because they were very interested in changes in the environment, and they didn't have our modern means of explaining things. So,
Well, think about this. If you're a Native American Indian, okay, you don't have the knowledge. Your knowledge is what you see around you, okay? What is your deal? You have a severe drought coming. Severe drought means famine. It means crops dying. It means livestock dying. It means all this other stuff dying. What is going to be coming in to clean up?
the buzzards.
Yes, the giant buzzards. So I could see them equating that with bad stuff, storms and stuff. You have a flood, kills out a bunch of wildlife. Guess who's coming up to clean up the carcasses? The big giant vultures.
Now,
Okay.
there's a story in the April 1890 edition of the Tombstone Epitaph that reports two cowboys killing a giant bird-like creature with an enormous wingspan. The creature was said to have smooth skin, featherless wings like a bat, and a face like an alligator.
I've seen that picture.
Uh-huh. And the problem is that there's about 15 different pictures with that. And we'll get to that in a minute, but let's go through some more Thunderbird stories. The cowboys allegedly after they killed the creature, they drug it back to town and pinned it, wings outstretched, against a barn. Excuse me.
That's a big bird.
That's a big bird. The wingspan was so large that it covered the entire side of the barn. A photo of the beast appeared along with the article, but it has since been lost to time.
Now the one I've seen is actually soldiers that have shot one, and it's they're typical posed, for the old timey cameraman.
It was a Civil War photo, I believe.
Yeah, Civil War, and it was Union soldiers that shot this thing out west somewhere, like around Arizona or something like
Well,
that.
I think you're getting your stories mixed up, because the photo that you're thinking of, and I've seen it too. It's very famous. That was actually found to be a prop photo
Oh, it was.
for a short-lived science fiction show called Freaky Links.
Oh,
and it was
really?
kind of like a junior edition of the X-Files. There were some teenagers that went around that looked at different monsters, and they found that photo, and they ended up hunting a subterranean pteranodon based on that photo.
Oh, 10-4. Okay, so we need our
But we debunked one, but there's multiple more.
that's one that's been debunked.
And the one in Arizona, that was the one I was telling you about, because that was the Tombstone Epitaph
Okay.
photo.
Okay, 10-4. Well,
right.
while you're looking for that, we need to take a little short break, and we'll be right back. Dude, we talk about all kinds of shit in here.
Now, have you guys done a show like this before? Because you guys seem to just... You know exactly where you are going. It's like you guys...
No, Kevin and I play well off of each other.
My mom actually taught him in
him,
first
right.
grade, and we got to become friends, and we've actually done a ghost investigation with him before, and me and him have just hit it off, and I've got just enough knowledge in a wide variety of stuff that I'm dangerous.
I agree.
But I'm a total believer. But I'm also a skeptic in some things. I'm not like a going in there blind, as you say. And those references just want to come out when I'm in front of you. I do not know why.
No. It happens. So when we come back, you are alluding to this story about Big Bend and so forth. If someone's just tuning in, like me, I don't know the story.
Okay.
I think that needs to be an episode in and of itself.
Okay.
Yes, and we're actually thinking about doing an expedition down there. And you are welcome to come with us.
Well, not with the bear, not with Pear Bear.
Not with what?
Perry.
Oh.
I call him the Pear Bear. The bear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would have to. But I would definitely want to be debriefed afterwards. And
No, 10-4, yeah. Because, we would like to film it and make it like mini Facebook or YouTube documentary about it. And tie it in with our shows and maybe put pieces of it on the Facebook and stuff. And because, man, we knew about it. It was kind of a family deal for just between our, us and our family. And then, we'd only see signs of this thing about once every 7 years. And we just called it the cactus bird because, it's like the second time, like the first group of 7 years gone by, that's when we actually saw it. We saw signs of it before. And it was like turkey tracks that were,
4 times bigger.
yeah, 2 foot long, And then we why it called the cactus bird because we spotlighted it out beside a canyon, edge of a canyon one night. My dad goes, "What is that thing?" And I said, "Oh man, I think it was a cactus." And he goes, "There's no cactus over there." And we shined back, and we got eye shine, and that thing spread its wings and dropped off the edge of that cliff.
Okay, we got a really interesting comment. I know we're not quite live yet.
Okay, hang on.
Go ahead.
We're coming right back. So it's going to do the.
Hey, and we are back on Johnson County Paranormal, where our friend Jeffrey Wayne Smith online has sent us a really interesting Facebook comment. He says, "Have y'all heard they might have found some dodos?
Like alive?
Like alive. There was, and I believe, because I actually saw the video of this last night, there was a gentleman that was operating a drone on the island of Moritaris. I didn't say that right. The sole island where dodos lived, which is off the coast of Madagascar. Mm-hmm. He was operating a drone, and he's flying the drone out over this kind of a swampy, marshy area, and you see 3 what look like dodo birds scatter and run as the drone flies over them.
Really?
Yes. And that would be really cool. The dodo is a really sad example of human-caused extinction.
Yeah, they tasted too good.
Yeah, they tasted too good. They were easy to catch. They had no fear of humans, and they were ground nesting birds.
Yeah, Kentucky Fried Dodo. I did one.
So, Jeffrey, hopefully that was the thing that you were alluding to. But if there was something else, please let us know.
Call in.
Yeah,
our number's 817-506-7257.
All right, so let's look at some 20th century sightings of the Thunderbird. April 10th, 1948, 3 people in Overland, Illinois saw what they thought was a passing plane until it started flapping its wings. Then they realized that it was something very different. And they describe it as a large vulture or condor, a large traditional bird, not a pterosaur. A few weeks later, a man and his son see what they describe as an enormous bird creature with a body shaped like a naval torpedo. The creature was flying at least 500 feet up in the air and cast a shadow the same size as a small airplane. Similar sightings in St. Louis, Missouri prompt citizens to write letters to the mayor, demanding something be done about these huge birds.
Well, I can believe that about St. Louis because, for one, my wife is from St. Louis. Her family's from there. No, not saying she's prehistoric. No, but just east of downtown, across the river, Mississippi River right there, they're in a major excavation deal, and it's like right on the edge of St. Louis of pyramids. A huge pyramid network that...
So do they walk like Egyptians now?
Well, they're more Aztec style, but they're mud.
They're mound builders.
Yeah, but they are the size of like South American and
Pyramids.
Mexico pyramids, and it goes like 6 miles long, and they figured out it was the center of this whole ancient civilization that predated anything that they've ever known about.
Huh. So the St. Louis mayor at the time gets just inundated with angry phone calls and letters from people scared for their kids, scared to death about these giant Thunderbird sightings, and they demand, because he is a responsible politician, that he do something to make the community safe. So what he does is he actually sets out like giant bear traps trying to catch these Thunderbirds. And it worked.
Really?
He appealed to the lowest common denominator. He got the people kind of calmed down. And then he notices something that would probably explain a lot of these sightings. In the marsh outside of town, there are thousands of great blue herons. And there are tracks all around these big bear traps that he sets up. So he puts kind of a press release out and says, hey, these are giant, great blue herons. Crisis averted, probably nothing you have to worry about. And settles the situation, which is kind of funny because it's that mass hysteria. It's one person gets scared and, well, you need to do something. That big Thunderbird's going to kill us and eat us, and you're the mayor. Why aren't you taking care of us? And then somebody reasonable steps in and says, yeah, we've got an entire swamp full of giant birds. That's probably what you're seeing. Let's just calm down and let's look at this reasonably. And then once word gets out, things calm down. For the time being.
Well, as you were telling the story, it sounded a bit too poetic for me.
Yeah,
in that, how could they know 500 feet up in the air? I mean, I've watched birds. I used to be able to see, and I couldn't ever guesstimate. Well, oh no, that one's way more than 500 feet.
Yeah, and I've always wondered about that too.
Just seemed too poetic.
Our knowledge now, as far as like stuff like that, we're stupid when it comes to that. They think about it. We depend too much on modern technology and stuff like that. These people didn't have that stuff, and they were able to discern distances and measure, by shadows and what have you, and they could come up with probably within a few feet of.
Because that was their lifeblood. That was what their existence was important on, knowing things like that.
Yes, and us now, we can't comprehend that because, we got smartphones, we got this and that. We got Alexa. That plane is 500 feet from you.
It's northbound on an eastern trajectory. And, okay, Jeff wrote us back. He said, yes, sir, it was. They may also have caught the thylacine on a game camera. I saw that, too. The thylacine is a really interesting example of, basically it's a marsupial tiger that's built more along the lines of a dog. They call it a tiger, but it's built like a dog.
Oh, the Tasmanian
tiger, same thing.
Down there in New Zealand and Australia. That's supposedly extinct.
All right, so there's a really interesting encounter that happens on July 25th, 1977. Lawndale, Illinois. 3 boys were playing in their backyard. 2 large birds arrive and chase the kids. Two boys escape unharmed, but the third, a 10-year-old child named Martin Lowe, was reportedly grabbed by the shoulders by the bird, which lifted him 2 feet off the ground and carried him some distance away before his kicking and screaming caused the bird to drop him. Witnesses described the bird as being large and black. with a white ringed neck and a wingspan of at least 10 feet. This
Okay.
description matches the Andean condor, which is not only really friggin' rare in Illinois, but does not have talons strong enough to lift people.
To me, that sounds just like a raptor, a big raptor.
Raptor, for those folks listening home, raptor is not the dinosaur, but the term for predatory birds.
Yeah, like a hawk or a falcon or an eagle. There are eagles from time to time.
Golden eagles.
Huh?
Golden eagles.
Yeah, I mean, they get big. And what's to say that there was, I mean, you can have a family of people that have average 6 foot tall kids and then one come out 6'8", you know, and just be brutish and mongoloid and everybody else is thin and, you know, and delicate. You know, that can happen. Nature happens in weird ways.
Life finds a way.
And, you know, I mean, look at my family tree. You know, I'm the pretty one of everybody. That's
saying
scary. Yeah, that's scary.
All right, so there's another cool sighting that happens in 2002. The Anchorage Daily newspaper in Alaska reports the sighting of a large bird-like creature that flew alongside a small plane. The wingspan was reportedly around 14 feet. Many believe this to simply be an exaggerated report of a Steller's sea eagle, which has a wingspan of 6 to 8 feet. Steller's sea eagles are giant fish hunting eagles.
Okay.
Which are kind of, they're comparable to the golden eagle. They're comparable to condors in size.
And okay, for me, for Chad and the viewers listening and the or listeners listening and the viewers viewing, how tall, you know, standing
Would one
like
of
a
these
regular
things be?
bird would a golden eagle typically be?
I've seen golden eagles on the ground in Wyoming, and I'd say they would approach 4 feet tall.
So I'm equating it to like March of the Penguins. Some of those penguins can get pretty tall.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's probably not a bad thing to equate it to.
So that's a big damn raptor.
It's a big damn raptor.
And so logically,
I think we have a new catchphrase. That's a big damn raptor.
that's a big damn raptor. Yeah. So logically, there can be a deformity, a bastard size
Oh, okay.
bird.
Why does it have to be a deformity? Why couldn't it just be a new species that is so large and so rare that its territories just cover not only miles, but
States.
continents, and it slowly makes its way around?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, look
Yeah.
here. Look here in North Texas. We have the Black Panthers are making a comeback. One Black Panther, its territory is 150 miles across. So, yeah, I can see a big raptor. They're going to hit the, you know, they're going to hit the heat waves and stuff and ride the jet streams and stuff like that, and not expend as much energy and be over in the next state before you know it. And hey, there's a nice sheep. I'll go eat that and floss my teeth with its fur.
All right, so conclusions about the Thunderbird. Many Thunderbird sightings are very likely sightings of known animals with a mistaken assessment of their size. We're seeing something that we know, but we're understanding it to be a lot bigger than it actually is. Other more unusual sightings could be actually pterosaurs, or they could be teratorns. It could be one of those coelacanth situations where here's this animal that we thought was gone for millions and millions of years, but come to find out, it's really not. It's just super rare, and we haven't noticed it yet.
And let's touch on that when we come back
All
after
right.
this break. Yeah, down there where me and my dad have our ranch, our family's ranch down there for hunting and stuff. Our neighbor's Big Bend National Park. It is rough country. It is very inaccessible country. There's caves, there's canyons that you can't, you know. We have about 12 sections of land down there. We encompass a whole mountain. And we owned it for 20 plus years. And we have maybe got to actually visually walk on less than 2% of it.
The venue on lakewhitney.com.
So you both are from the area. Have you heard of Audads?
Audads
Yeah.
are goats, not goats.
We got them all over that mountain down there. And that's another thing, too, about our cactus bird. Every 7 years, when we start seeing sign of this thing, our aoudad population drops, our javelina population drops drastically, and you ain't going to find no deer down there, or Mexican black bear, or anything like that. They're just not there. And but then the next years after that, it's it's wild. It's crazy. But you know, Dad and them will go down there one weekend and man, there just ain't nothing moving down here. And then the next weekend they'll come back and guess, hey man, guess what we saw down by the creek? We saw more tracks. You know, and it's just like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And then, you know, we started talking about it. Somebody overheard us talking one time, and they're like, "Oh, y'all talking about them giant dinosaur birds?" You know, everybody been seeing them down there for centuries.
And you know, I don't think for somebody that's not, if someone's listening. So I'm just thinking of our friend in Scotland. For somebody to drive in Texas, and where you're talking about in Texas, I mean, to drive tip to tip from Texas, from east to west.
80 miles an hour takes 9 hours to get to the entrance to our ranch, and then it's another 6 miles into there, but it takes you about an hour and a half to 2 hours to drive back in there.
Yeah.
For 6 miles. But that's 80, 85 miles an hour all the way, 9 hours. Maybe stopping for fuel one time. That's a long drive. So when we go down there, we stay for about a week. That's not a drive you're going to make it and turn around and come back 2 days later.
That's what's amazing about Texas is it's got so many different ecospheres. Am I saying that correct?
Mm-hmm. And we are back on a Friday night.
Yes, sir. We are talking Thunderbirds tonight.
Talking big turkey legs.
Big turkey legs. All right. So let's finish up our conclusions. All right. So the first conclusion that we have on the Thunderbird, it could very well be something completely well known, but we're seeing it, we're not expecting it, and we're over exaggerating the sizes in some of these reports and encounters. The other more unusual sightings could be pterosaurs. They could be teratorns. They could be animals that we long since consider extinct, but you know, they're kind of pulling the coelacanth. They're kind of popping out of nowhere because, you know, they've adapted. They're living in areas that are not prone to human exploration, and we've just never seen them before, and we've not scientifically recognized them before. Now, what's interesting, though, is that if these are real animals, then they must be incredibly rare. Because as one cryptozoologist put it, with millions of competent bird watchers constantly watching the skies, we should have found more of them by now. Somebody should have seen more of these things by now.
Okay, I will tell you, especially down there around down in South Texas, dude, you can drive miles and miles and not even see another person. There's been times we have sat there, deer are within 20 feet of us, and we don't know it. Because that's how hard and rocky the terrain is. Down there, you've got mountains and you've got canyons and stuff that are blocking views. You can see miles this way, and it may look like a bird, and you keep driving 90 miles, another 90 miles, and you finally see it's an airplane. and it's still miles away from you. Distances out there, that is the one place. My dad always called me the walking map scope. I could tell you what direction we were at, where we were at, how to get around. I was just a walking map scope. Until I get down there, that place turns me around so bad. I will swear on my hand on the Bible that I'm looking north, and it's southwest.
I believe you.
That area turns me around so bad. But everybody else that has direction problems up here
can do it just fine down there.
Yeah, it can deal with it just fine. But for some reason, I don't know what it is about this area, but it turns me around. Like,
is it in a valley type thing that you're not able to get your senses?
I don't know what it is. I really don't. But
So you're just trying to say that the scope of where you're down there, it's
I could not tell you north from south.
Right.
Anywhere else on the planet, I could tell you. But I get down there, and this one turns me around. I don't know why.
so on the Thunderbird. So why would the Native Americans put this out as a myth if they hadn't seen it?
That's exactly why would they? I don't know because all of these it's like we talked about when we dealt with Bigfoot, when we dealt with some of these aquatic sea serpent type monsters, the ones that have like the Loch Ness monster, like Champ, that have that oral tradition of indigenous people. There's got to be something that these indigenous people are seeing that's causing them to try and explain this away. Because, Indians, and I know that's not a PC term, but Indians don't have time to just sit around and make up stories. They're constantly on the move for trying to survive. They're constantly doing stuff.
Well, yeah. If they're not hunting, they're sleeping
Yeah.
Yeah.
or eating
Or
you
building
know.
teepees or raising children.
Exactly.
All of that important
Everybody
stuff.
had a role, and it was survival. There was very little leisure time being an Indian. I can guarantee you that.
And ask me your question once more. I just want to make sure that I'm answering it.
So why would the Native Americans propose this as a legend? Why would they take the time to tell this story if it weren't?
Because it wasn't a legend to them. It was part of their life way. It was as real to them as something is to us. You came in, you got unplugged there, Chad.
Yep. I'm listening to you though.
Yeah. No. Because to them it was very real. Just like Sasquatch was real to some of these things, some of these people.
So there might be.
They were experiencing something. They were seeing something.
Well, true. And look at this too. Shaman were also the storytellers, too, and it could be handed down from generation to generation to generation, and an Indian in the 1860s might not have seen something, but
their ancestors who came over the land bridge from Beringia during the Ice Age saw it, and that
Yes.
story has just progressed.
Here's another theory I just thought of. There was cave writing and stuff from prehistory. They drew on cave walls and rocks and carved in stuff what they saw around them. Well, what's to say during the beginning of the Ice Age that there wasn't a few of these things running around, and they drew them on the cave wall, and then they said, okay, they created, the shaman interpreted that as writing, and he told a story of what he wrote on that wall.
Yeah.
And they might not have directly seen it, but it became part of their culture.
Because I was chewing when you said that, but yes, there are pictographs of teratorns, of large extinct birds.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but there's teratorn remains in the La Brea tar pits.
Really?
Yes. And, these were creatures that our early ancestors were familiar with. And I think Kevin hit the nail on the head when he said that there is sort of a racial memory of these things. Our ancestors experienced them. They told stories about them. Some of those stories got passed down to the indigenous people, and they may have changed up a little, but the spirit is still there.
And so I'm thinking like the story where you told about the kid that was picked up. Could have been a small kid, could have been a large bird, didn't actually lift it off.
No, it actually did. Now that was not an ancient story. That happened in 1977. And
So he could have been a very small framed kid that was smaller. He was like the runt of the group,
could have been.
and an abnormally larger predator, raptor, come down and clamped onto him, tried to get him off the ground. He kicked and screamed, but them talons, they're gonna leave some marks,
Or somebody could just be lying about the entire story. I don't think that's the case in this one, but
I would want to see the medical reports.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to see
Now, are there scratch marks?
Yes, because them talons, especially
They're
when they
gonna
pick
dig
it
deep.
up, they're going to pierce.
Yeah,
They're going to dig into the muscle. They're going to get in there, and maybe he didn't get a good enough grip, or something like that.
Well, and they said the grip was fine, but the kid was kicking and screaming and squawking and fighting so bad that the bird finally said, "Screw this," and dropped him.
And see, even if someone is telling the story, there has to be some plausible elements.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm having to vote, I say I'm more than a maybe.
Okay, so and that. Let's wrap up with the Thunderbirds. So yeah, I think in terms of actuality in this thing existing, Chad, you are more than a maybe.
I'm more than a maybe.
Yeah. Could we just push you into being yes? These things existed, or
yes, they existed.
Okay. And Chad. I'm going to second that, and I'm also going to be a yes on the existence of Thunderbirds.
I know what your answer is because you've seen these creatures.
Well, now mine's a little
He's
different
seen
from
a
the
variation
Thunderbird. Mine is, I want to say, mine is more prehistoric. Mine is more Pteranodon, pterodactyl.
How are we doing on time? Because we can actually get into the pterodactyls.
Oh, we're doing good. We got 45 minutes left of the show.
Then let's get into the pterodactyls.
In fact, I tell you what. Let's get in let's take this short break, and then we'll come back in with the pterodactyls.
Yeah, because I've got 6 pages on pterodactyls.
Is it me, or are there a lot of commercials tonight?
I'm trying to get in the habit
Okay.
of
Sometimes we
doing
just
every
forget about
17 minutes. I'm trying to. I got a deal over here for basically every 17 minutes.
Okay.
Because I'm selling the crap out of. I'm trying to sell the crap out of commercials, and I'm trying to get more income coming in. I've been hitting the streets, brother.
Well, no, I mean, in realistic and most radio shows, there are these breaks, and it's like in the past when we've talking, we get so deep into it. Oh yeah, we got to stop.
Yeah, I'm purposely trying to not zone out, if you know what I mean. Because I'd get so into what we were talking that I'd forget the time.
We talked so long on Nessie that I enjoyed that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But I completely forgot we were having to pay attention to these things, and it was like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what fascinates me about all this stuff. Because we really get into it, and
now, did you lower the mic so we're not talking over on TuneIn?
I think we're okay.
we're still on Facebook Live though.
Right. Oh yeah.
But we're not on TuneIn. I got the mics cut off. If you can hear the music clear in the commercials, I got the mics off.
Okay.
When they mute, kind of muffle up a little bit, that the mics are still on.
Owens Furniture
And
is bringing quality
Jeffrey Smith says he votes yes. So Jeff, we're here with you, man.
Nice.
to traditional and even
I believe I'll buy into this because I just don't see that.
taste and know what you want.
Why would the Native Americans? Why wouldn't they go beyond that? Why wouldn't they have giant lizards
Customers to come in each week and
that
see
were
something new.
dinosaurs?
Right.
You've been looking for at 13
And they don't. I mean, there's a cryptid that they talk about every once in a while that I really want to learn more about, but I can't find anything. Called a prairie dragon. Prairie dragon. And I can't even find like a vague description of it. I heard them talk about it on Coast to Coast one time for like 5 or 6 minutes, and then they went on.
That's
to the
probably
next
all
one.
they
Yeah.
had on it.
And that's the frustrating thing with a lot of these. It's like when we were in school and kids would give really bad book reports. They'd give you just a little brief detail and then they'd move on to something else. That's the way a lot of these, and that's not even cryptozoology, but that's across the spectrum for the paranormal. It's like, I'll tell you just a little bit about it, just enough to get you interested, and then you move on.
I met the greatest lady today for UFOs and aliens' existence. We are so getting her in this, and I'm going to turn the volume down real quick and tell you one word. Okay, I'm back up with the microphones, but
That make me crazy.
dude, she's a hoot. I love talking with her.
Where'd you find her?
We were shopping right over here by the hub. It's a
Fancies?
yes. Yeah, we were right in there at that resale shop.
Were you trying to buy you some clothes?
Yeah, they didn't have anything to fit me or accentuated my legs.
And we are back on Johnson County Paranormal, where we are going to spend the last segment of our show tonight talking about a really interesting flying cryptid called the Roapin. Now, the Roapin, and this is one that I've actually got some secondhand experience with. The Roapin is a flying cryptid said to live in Papua New Guinea. Descriptions vary, ranging from bat-like to pterosaur-like. The creatures hold a very prominent role in local folklore and are believed to be both spirit and actual animals. Now, when I was a little boy, my dad, for everyone listening at home, my father was Texas Ranger for this area. And Texas Rangers are not responsible for one city or one town. They're actually responsible for several counties. Now, Dad had Johnson County, Hood County, Somerville County, and Ellis County. And a story was told to him of a gentleman from the Creation Evidences Museum in Glen Rose that came into the Somerville County Sheriff's Office one day and wanted to know if they had any, and stay with me on here, if they had any body parts that the Sheriff's Office, or that the Sheriff's Office could loan them. And, that's an odd request. So the Sheriff's Office kind of looked at him like Sasquatch just looked at me. And they said, no, we don't really do that. Why would you want that to begin with? Well, the Creation Evidences Museum tells them that they're getting ready to form an expedition to Papua New Guinea to look for the Roapin. And according to them, the Roapin is a existing form of pterodactyl. They even likened it to the exact species of Prionodactylus. Now, Prionodactylus in the fossil record only has about a 20-inch wingspan. According to the gentleman that spoke with the sheriff's office, these Roapin have a 20 to 30-foot wingspan. But
oh, really cool little tidbit from Jeffrey Wayne Smith. He's come up with some really good stuff.
Cambodian temple.
Yeah, it has a Stegosaurus on it.
That may be a Stegosaurus or that may be a rhinoceros. I've seen in both interpretations. And yeah, I think that could be an issue for later episodes. But it was funny because these... and good find, Jeffrey. Thank you, sir. What's interesting was the more they got to talking about, building an expedition to capture one of these Roapin, the people in Glen Rose told the sheriff's office, they said, we have clearance from the United States government to capture 2 of these things and import them. And the sheriff's office looked into it, and the clearance from the FDA, or whoever it was, is actually there and is still standing for this organization to capture and import 2 of these Roapin. And
I want to go.
That would be awesome.
I know they're weird people, but I want to go.
Oh, I'd go in a heartbeat. But he tells them, the member of the organization tells the sheriff's department a really interesting story. They said the villagers down there experience these things all the time. They are very real animals to them, but they're scared to death of them, and they see them as a force of God, as with kind of a supernatural element to it.
Well, if you look at more primitive people, more uneducated people, they equate this stuff with religion. A lot of times they have no other way to explain it, no technology. They say, oh, it must be the gods.
And these are associated with their death gods, with the afterworld, the afterlife. Because, according to this story, when these natives bury their dead, they have to stand guard over the burial site of their loved one for at least a few days, because these pterodactyls, if you will actually come down out of the sky and attempt to dig up the grave to eat the corpse. And what's interesting is dead bodies are not even enough for these things. There was a really well documented story that happened a few years prior to the gentleman coming into the sheriff's office, where there was a crowd that was gathered in the center of the village, and in that crowd was a gentleman who was on crutches. He was born a cripple. Well, a couple of these pterosaurs start circling the village. Everybody else scatters to get away from them because they know what these things are capable of. One of these pterodactyls swoops down, grabs the crippled man, carries him up, what they said, 10 feet up in the air, drops him in the hopes of killing him. Well, when it drops him, it doesn't hurt him, it just kind of messes him up. And he's still alive, he's still kicking. So the pterodactyls circle around again, they pick him up, they take him up in the sky, and they drop him from an even higher depth, an even higher height this
As
time.
they would with like fish.
Yeah.
I've seen other, raptor type birds that have dropped stuff like that.
And this time when they drop him, it kills him. And they drop him again in the center of the village. Well, when they drop him and they watch him and he's not moving, the two pterodactyls come down out of the sky and proceed to eat this thing in the center of the village, to eat this man in the center of the village. And they said that the villagers stayed in their houses for hours and hours, just waiting for these pterosaurs to eat their fill and go on.
They must be really terrified of something like that.
They're absolutely terrified.
Because they got large predatory animals down there that they hunt, they fend off their villages with. So they must be really terrified of killing these devil birds.
And I don't know. I've heard that story since I was a little boy, and to me, years later when I would research,
this first I've ever heard of that.
Years later when I researched the Ropen, I found out that that matches the description of. We didn't call them Ropens, he just called them pterodactyls. That it matches the description of the creature from that story identically, I think. And that thing also does some other.
So is this story pretty? I know it comes secondhand through your dad in Somerville County and everything, but is there documentation?
There is, and there's a video of them in this next phenomenon that these things have. The Creation Evidences Museum actually has videotape of this.
Really?
And not of the encounter, but of this next ability that these things have. Now, one of the more unique traits of this cryptid, and it's also described with those pterodactyls in New Guinea, is that it's bioluminescent. It glows in the dark. It's believed to be exhibited.
Well, that's aliens right there.
Well, believed to be exhibited in patches under each wing and on the chest or throat. Video of these strange nocturnal glows have been studied by forensic video analysts, who determined the strange lights were not the result of anything man-made, but instead represent an unknown animal, perhaps even an unknown frigate bird or surviving Rhamphorhynchus pterodactyl, which is the class of pterodactyls that these things belong to. And supposedly there's audio recordings of these things screeching from a distance. And it sounds kind of like an eagle's call. But yeah, deeper than that. Much meaner. Now, Jeffrey wrote us back. He said, the depiction has Dorkile has plates. Well,
Dorsal plates.
Dorsal plates. It might. Or one of the other descriptions that has actually been put forward as an explanation is that maybe those aren't plates. Maybe that's the rhino standing in front of like a palm leaf or some kind of big leaf of vegetation, and you're seeing the edges of the leaf behind the back of the animal. But I think we'll try and find a picture of that and maybe post it for the viewers to look at. But I don't know. The Ropen is a really neat example of a flying cryptid that could potentially be a prehistoric survivor, because it sounds an awful lot like a pterodactyl. To me, it does.
Yeah.
Anyway,
How would it have survived?
Could have hidden out in the cave. Now, remember, this is on the other side of the world from the
Yucatan.
From the Yucatan.
Sorry about that. Turn that volume down.
And maybe maybe things were not hit as hard ecologically back there when this happened, and this thing was able to make do and survive down through the eons. It could also be something a little less exotic. It could be a giant bat. It could be something a little bit more plausible and maybe not quite as exciting, but there are several types of large bat known from this part of the world, and maybe this is one too. The bioluminescence, I think, is interesting because a lot of times, I mean, there are animals that glow in the dark, but the animals that we know of that glow in the dark aren't nearly as big as some of these things are described. Most of the time it's things like lightning bugs, glowworms, little stuff. But these ropens are described as having wingspans, 15 to 30 feet. So I don't know.
Okay.
I've seen bioluminescence actually in my presence.
Okay.
Underneath the water.
Okay. I've seen that too.
So I'm trying to think with this particular animal, this cryptid. Why would that be an adaptive feature to draw in?
Maybe it's used for mating and courtship. Maybe whoever has the brightest light is the most attractive to the member of the opposite sex. Maybe it's a territorial display. Maybe you're flying along and you see lights over there and you're like, oh, better not go over there. That's where another family of ropens live. There's a lot of reasons, I think, that traits like that could develop. I'm trying to think what else. It might even aid in, attracting and eating prey. Maybe it's an attractant. Maybe it's something that draws in bugs or birds or animals on the ground, and they see it and look up and like, oh, there it is, and whoop, swoops in and gets them. I think there's a lot of feasible explanations for why something could have marks like this. Now, there's supposed to be patches under each wing, on the chest, and on the throat. So the entire animal doesn't glow in the dark, but just enough of it does that it gets itself noticed.
I did find the picture Jeffrey was talking about, and I posted on Facebook. Brother, that is not palm leaves.
You don't think so?
That's a freaking stegosaurus.
Okay.
That's not in the shape of palm leaves. They're actually cut and curved like the dorsal plates would be.
Okay.
But
why would a stegosaurus be on a Cambodian temple? And Jeff, there's no Jeffrey actually apologized on this. There's no need to apologize for that ever, because that's what we're here for. We're here to have discussions about stuff like that. No, you're not derailing the conversation at all, man. Comment anytime, and that goes for anybody else. If anyone would like to call in, Jeff, you especially, 817-506-7257. We'd love to hear from you.
I'm here because I was always afraid to call because I enjoyed the banter between both of you, because like we were discussing in the commercial, you guys it's like you guys have already had this conversation, but you've not. It just seems you guys are clicking, and I was afraid to call in because of like this moment right here where I'm kind of going.
I mean, that was what you're describing was a similar problem that we've had.
Me and him agree on a lot of stuff, but we do have our disagreements too. Because he'll see something a certain way, but I'm seeing it as a layman. Someone that's not been to college and stuff like that.
But don't sell yourself short on that either.
Well, no. But what I'm saying
I
is,
was blessed with a really nice education,
and all you had was your looks.
Exactly, and it got me this far.
Adaptive. You
I'm gonna put my sunglasses on just because everybody else was wearing them. These are my $16 expensive sunglasses. What's up?
$3 at the flea market, brother.
All right. So, in terms of the Roapen,
you've sold this because you've got secondhand knowledge. So I don't know that you can vote. I mean, I'm being serious.
It's my show. Okay. All right. Fine. All right. Okay. So I'll sit this one out. Okay. So I'm not going to vote. Chad, what do you think?
Now, okay. Just to recap, there's supposed video evidence, correct?
Yes, but it's not much better than, say, a UFO, because it's lights in the sky.
Okay.
But according to...
Is there photographic evidence? Daytime especially?
No.
Fossil?
Yes. Pterodactyls, pterosaurs were spread out worldwide.
But in that particular region, do we know?
Yeah. Now that particular region is largely island, and a lot of the landforms that would have been around back in the
Rainforest style?
it's definitely rainforest.
Okay. So that right there tells me
Okay.
you're not going to find remains near as bad.
The fossil record might be a little spotty because there's been a lot of geological change and uplift in this area since the time when these things were actually alive. But anyways,
We have primitive style people that probably live like they have for hundreds of years. Correct? Or
Yeah.
are these more modern?
these are people that are living.
Currently.
Well, it's a balance between some of them are living the way that their ancestors did. Some of them are incorporating much more
So
modern
they're getting
names.
all the T-shirts of the guys that didn't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I'm. This is our definite.
I'm going to say yeah.
I'm going to say this is more. This one here is more of a maybe.
That we're saying a pterodactyl-like creature still exists.
Bioluminescent,
Yeah.
which I can see that, especially if they're.
That's persuasive for me.
I think so.
So is that a maybe, a medium applause, or is that a crowd surge applause?
It's a maybe.
I would have to see. more evidence.
Forget that. Why? Just like everything else that we've talked about, all these other cryptids. You haven't convinced me that these people are writing about it. They're talking about it. I mean, we've got that one story, but that's a story told from the creationists looking for body parts at a sheriff's office. Right?
Right.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think you can't vote on this one because you've heard the story. You're telling the legend.
No, I feel you. Yeah.
I want to believe you.
Right.
And with that, let's hold that thought.
Okay, let's hold that thought.
You see how many rabbit holes you can go down in this stuff? I mean, yeah, you can start off with a clear-cut avenue, and then all of a sudden, it branches into 50 different trails that you can take. That
Oh yeah. Yeah.
No.
And that's what makes it so fun.
But see, you once I realized you were telling me about what other people were saying had happened, but there's not pictures, there's not cave paintings, there's no legends. This is all. Where is this in the books?
It's not. It's this is in that fringe between science and the unknown. That's why it was one of the things that I covered when I wrote this course.
So when Johnson County Paranorma gets syndicated and you get that syndication money,
we're going, brother.
when you can
Yeah, we
fly.
are.
And you are going to go with us.
Well,
Yeah, you are.
yeah.
We're going to find a way to. You're going to have a role in expeditions, and just haven't figured out how we're going to do it. But we're going to do it, brother. Hey. Oh, I just thought of it. How's your hearing?
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. And I'm betting it's heightened because of your lack.
No,
of
you just
eyesight.
use it better. You just use it better.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Parabolic mics.
That could be great.
You can be our parabolic mic guy.
I would notice something. What's weird, even before I lost my eyesight, I could hear when somebody next door turned on their TV. That energy would come on. I'd say they just turned on their TV. She'd tell you, no, I'd say, go over and ask. And my mom or whoever would walk over and turn off the damn TV was on.
I'll be there. Well, you're a parabolic. You're a sound guy. Because if anybody's going to hear it, the blind guy is.
Well,
I've got the best side out of all of us. I just now got down to 20/20 vision. He's in between me and you. He's about halfway between me and you.
and I'm probably wearing the most expensive sunglasses out of all of us.
Is
No, I
there
can't. No,
no sight at all?
nothing. Actually, mine's the exact opposite. I actually see flashes all the time. So, blindness for me. So when we're talking about what's paranormal, we think of blindness as darkness. We're back. So, almost to kind of jump on that thing when we're talking about bioluminescence, where we're talking about the Rolopin. Okay, for me, blindness is not darkness. We are assuming that because someone is blind, that they see nothing, when in fact, I had posted earlier today that I see flashes all the time, different color hues, all these things that it's not extrasensory, it's what my eyes can see, but that's not what... Before a television screen, who could have described what I'm seeing? I mean, my great-grandfather went blind from this. Could he describe static electricity, the white noise we'd see on a TV? No, he'd never seen one.
Right.
So, kind of going into these legends that we're talking about, if you don't have the words to describe or the concepts to, like we were talking about with the one bird that was 500 feet up in the... Okay, if you don't have that scope, you can't use that vocabulary. So on this particular cryptid, I'm kind of sketchy because I'm wondering... I need more information.
Right. And that's the frustrating thing is everybody needs more information on all of these guys, and there's just not any I've really given the width and breadth of what I can on these sometimes. And I mean, I'd love to have an entire book to show you guys about all of these things, but they just don't exist. Which is why which is why these guys are in the realm that they are of somewhere between fact and fiction. Which kind of sounds
deep.
like a cop-out answer.
No, it's not. To me, I see it as a deep answer. Because otherwise, it would just be in our vernacular. We would just be able to, oh yeah, those. Oh yeah, dog, sure.
It says this show is the best thing since In Search Of. Well, Jeff, we sure appreciate that. Thank you. That's what we're going for. We're trying to entertain and inform at the same time.
So like welcome all of our new viewers.
Absolutely, we would.
Yeah. Adding revenue in the Joko Community Radio's pockets. I love it. Making this show grow.
Well, so how are we doing on time, Sasquatch?
We have roughly 30 minutes.
Okay.
And 15 minutes till next commercial break, and then another 15 to end the show. And last week we started, after the Johnson County Paranormal Show, we started the hour-long 2-episode radio program of Suspense, the old radio show. Well, tonight, not only do we have 2 episodes of Suspense, but we've added a new thing as well. We have the CBS Radio Mystery Theater starting tonight. So we're going to have 2 full hours after this of old-time radio thrillers. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to listen to this on the way home and laying in bed with my headphones on and listen to these shows. I've already listened to them about 3 times this week, and they're cool. They're really cool.
So let's see if we can get one more cryptid in before we move to next week's episode. Now, again, this is going to be a 2-parter. So tonight we focused on unknown flying cryptids. Next week we'll get into a few that are more terrestrial, more land-based animals. But let's talk about one which may actually be the same thing as a Roapin. It may be the same animal under a different name when this animal moves down into a different part of the world. This is the Kongamato. Now, the Kongamato is another pterosaur-like creature, this time reported by the people and explorers of the Giundo swamps of western Zambia, Angola, and the Congo. Suggested identities include Rhamphorhynchus, which was a very common and medium-sized Jurassic-era pterodactyl, a saddle-billed stork, or a giant bat. The name Kongamato means breaker of boats, and though no photos or video footage have been taken, numerous evidence exist in the form of eyewitness accounts and large wounds. There are actually people who have gone to the doctor after being attacked by this thing. And it'll be interesting to see what the doctor says about some of these wounds that have been brought forward.
The breaker of boats.
The breaker of boats. This animal is described as being very dangerous. It lives alongside certain rivers where it often attacks small boats and anything that disturbs it. So it's territorial. That's what that behavior sounds like to me.
Sounds like it.
It's described as being red or black in color with a 4 to 7 foot wingspan. So it's, small to medium size. Members of the local tribe identified it as being similar to pterodactyls when shown pictures of it from a book.
We'll keep going.
And I'm just watching you.
I'm over here doing engineer stuff.
Groovy. I like it. Now, one of the really interesting sightings comes from 1956. An engineer in Zambia saw 2 of the creatures flying slowly overhead. He said it looked prehistoric and had a wingspan of 3 to 3.5 feet, a beak to tail length of 4.5 feet, and a long, thin tail. Hang on a second. Are you sure? Is he gone now?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Bastard.
Yeah. Sorry. We had a not so nice person try to poke the bear with a comment on here that we don't need in the Joko family.
No. And I'm gonna let's put the Kangamato on a branch for a second. Let's just let him chill with the rest of the birds.
All right.
Don't ever make the mistake of attacking me, my family, or my museum, because I guarantee it, you will not like the results.
Exactly, brother.
All right.
So it sounds like, just to kind of put those two things together, some territorial things are right there. So I'm sensing from the creature you would break that bear.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you know how one person just comes along and screws things up? That's it. Okay, we're good.
Water off your back, brother. Water off your back.
No. All right, 1957. A patient arrives at the Fort Raspberry Hospital with a severe wound in his chest, saying that a large bird-like creature had attacked him in the Bantalulu swamps. When asked to draw the creature, he drew an animal resembling a pterosaur. The picture does not appear to have survived to the present. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Why is it when these things happen and people take pictures of the stuff that did it, those pictures never make it? I mean, that's right up there with why are the pictures of Bigfoot always fuzzy and blurry? Why is Nessie always seen from a distance?
Because my hair is always messed up.
But it's interesting to note that the areas where sightings and attacks have occurred are advertised as prime birdwatching sites, and yet this animal never seems to be reported by visiting educated birdwatchers.
But engineer lends credibility to education.
It does.
Well, yeah, but if we go back to a conversation from last week, status does not necessarily mean credibility, because look
That
at the
doctor,
surgeon who made the joke and let it go for years, and then on his deathbed finally tells somebody, oh yeah, that wasn't real, by the way, and had it actually locked up in his trunk up in his attic or something like that, and give it to his great grandkid. Excuse me. But yeah, that you can't always go by somebody's position.
No.
Okay, so this creature in the Congo, branch, breaker of boats.
Now they call it the breaker of boats because when the fishermen would go out into the reeds to fish and to look for things, these things were so territorial, so mean, that they would fly at the boats and they would overturn the boats and just wreck the days of these things. And I'm sorry, I owe viewers an apology. I got thrown off my game. The professor's just a little frazzled right now.
I got your back, brother,
I know
and
you
I
did.
handled it. I took care of it.
And we appreciate that.
Well, that's why I was kind of bringing it back.
Okay, and so I don't know. For me, it's easier to believe in that Ice Age giant vulture thing that we talked about, the Teratorn with the Thunderbird sightings, than it is for a Kongamato or a pterodactyl. And that's even with the stories that I mentioned before that were relayed to Dad from the Somerville County office. I don't know. I mean, I'd love for all of these animals to be real.
Beak to tail, 4 feet. So I listen to every word that you.
I know.
Okay.
So
here's my thought. Okay, you've got a creature that's pretty good size.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if they're like a pterodactyl style,
And let me show you. Let me show you a picture of this.
if they got a pterodactyl style head, okay, you're looking at a large plated head. I can see why they call them breaker of boats, because these people in this region, they're in the marshy swamps and everything. They're not going to have large boats. They're going to have small little.
There's that, and that's actually the picture where the breaker of boats story comes from.
Okay, I can see this. These things are about the size of buzzards.
Highly aggressive.
Yeah,
Very fast.
They look very highly aggressive, but their heads look very bulbous in as far as like in the forehead area, where they would come down, smash against boats, and these primitive people. They're not going to be in boats, what we consider boats.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
going to be in like in
Canoes.
in reed type canoes,
Yeah.
or So I can see it being called a breaker of boats. This sucker comes smashing at you. It's these guys are going to be standing up on a little boat with a.
Now, what's interesting and what adds a decent amount of believability. Remember when we talked about our friend the Quetzalcoatlus before? Quetzalcoatlus was a pterodactyl that was found in terrestrial sediments.
That's the Quetzal blah blah.
Now, this one, the picture here, this is Rhamphorhynchus. Rhamphorhynchus is found in marine sediments. Rhamphorhynchus was a fish eater. He sustained himself on aquatic life. He ate little fish, little bugs, stuff like that. So, for him to be sighted and encountered in a mangrove swamp type environment, that makes a lot of sense based on what we know of him from the fossil record. And maybe because these things are so rare, they've become so territorial and so aggressive that they're not about to let anybody else come between them and their food supplies. Mm-hmm. Especially some damn obnoxious native with spears and canoes that they know full well is a better hunter than they are.
Well, yeah, and you look, this is basically relatively unpopulated areas, non-industrial, what's the word I'm looking for?
Non-developed. Undeveloped.
Non-developed areas. So they're going to have the run of, people aren't going to go there other than the natives. The natives are going to steer clear. These birds are going to get more aggressive.
And those birds don't need to travel anywhere because they've got everything there that they need.
They got it locked down. Exactly.
And these are not birds in the traditional sense. Remember, these are flying reptiles. So they're not going to necessarily act the way that birds would, which is maybe why they wouldn't be noticed the same way that birds would. Because maybe instead of flying away for the night, these things dig into burrows underneath trees or actually inside of trees. They're doing stuff that isn't recognized as bird-like behavior. Now, what's interesting is that there are ancient accounts by people like Socrates and Heterodontus. He talks about there being flying dragons in Africa and Egypt. Small flying dragons that are pretty comparable.
Well, Socrates traveled.
Mm-hmm. Socrates traveled.
He traveled. He went to Egypt. He went to Ethiopia. He went down all the way down to South Africa during his travels, writing about the stuff. He was one of the first, I guess, what you'd say, Western culture to view the Egyptian pyramids.
Yeah, it's so familiar to this guy I know, Socrates. Yeah.
He was on Bill and Ted.
Yes.
This is Bob Socrates. I love that movie.
Socrates.
That was a documentary, I think.
Yeah, it was. Be excellent to each other.
So
and Henry the Kid.
Yeah.
So
there's Bill the Kid, Bob Genghis Khan. I love that movie. I need to find that on DVD.
Beethoven.
Yes. Where'd Napoleon go? Waterloo. Oh my gosh. The Congo is absolutely swimming in cryptids. There's all kinds of neat stuff there. And there were a few that we were going to get into tonight before we kind of ran out of time. But Namibia, which is another African country, Tanzania and Kenya. The Kongomato may also be related to what was described as a flying snake from Namibia, which, if you look at this picture, and maybe if you see it cruise by super fast and it's got its legs tucked up underneath its body, that could look like a flying snake,
Yes,
almost.
it could.
And again, if you're seeing something you've never seen before, you're not expecting, it's going to whiz by, and you're only going to have that brief image that was captured in your mind's eye, and you're not going to be able to stop and look at it and say, oh, that's really what that is. You're going to piece together an explanation, and you're going to try to describe it as best you can after the fact. And I would love to see one of these. And honestly, if I'm speaking scientifically, and I'm kind of putting myself out on a limb here, I would put a lot more stock in there being small, surviving pockets of these little pterodactyls than there are giant, globe-trotting, 40-foot wingspan guys. Because I think it would be easier for these little guys to hide out in primitive, undeveloped areas.
I'm with you.
Right? And again, coelacanth, it's not unheard of. Now, these guys are actually from... they're from the middle to late Jurassic period, so they're a little bit older in time than the coelacanth are. I mean, these are dinosaur age stuff. But, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that's held over from the Mesozoic. Why couldn't there be small pockets of little pterodactyls?
Yeah.
I'm for it.
I agree, and because I'm telling you, once we get down there to the mountain and you see where these start, cowboys that have lived down there for 100 years haven't seen but a small portion of this. I mean, it's volcanic. There's canyons, 40 to 400 foot deep. There's cliff faces. There's there are caves.
Lots of good
everywhere.
places to hide.
We keep finding caves on our place. We found an Indian cave, and it was just right up underneath a rock. We happened to.
No, just happened to look because, I mean, when in Jurassic Park, when Jeff Goldblum's character Ian Malcolm says, "Life finds a way," he hits the nail on the head 100%.
Exactly.
Life is adaptive. Life survives. Life does the best it can with what it's able to. That's why animals have expanded into every conceivable ecological niche. That's why there's stuff that lives way, way, way down in the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean, and all the way up to there's little microbacteria up in the thinnest layers of the atmosphere. Because life finds a way. Life is glorious. And if Matthew were here, and I'll say this anyway, that's one of those things that speaks to me of God. Because God is inventive. God is creative. God is capable of so much more cooler stuff than humans are. And he's able to design and adapt these animals for the environments that he chooses to place them in. And it is quite possible for someone to believe in God and evolution at the same time, because that's the way I do.
Yeah.
I mean, evolution is the verb, creation is the noun.
Exactly.
One can be the vehicle, one can
Absolutely.
be the fuel.
Absolutely. And to me, it's, God loves people. God loves his creation. God is infinite in his knowledge. He's going to know how things are today and how they're going to be in 1,000,000 years. Well, why, if he knows that, why wouldn't he take the steps to say, okay, this animal is doing great right now. It might not be doing great in 1,000,000 years' time, so I'm going to slowly start to modify and adapt it to give it the edge that it needs to survive later on down the road.
I have a firm belief that a whole bunch of us are going to get to the great pearly gates upstairs when our time comes, and we're going to go, whoa, I had this so wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But it'll be for the good.
But going back to kind of like what I said right in commercial, blindness according to you guys, as far as your conception, your belief at this point was darkness. And I'm saying, no, it's not.
Well, I can see where you're coming with this, because when I have my really bad headaches that render me where I can't see and I can't talk, it's not total blackness. It is, it's like seeing stars, flashes.
If you push on your eyes and you get those little puffs and so forth, that's what I see all the time. So, kind of going to all of these different things we're talking about, just because we're trying to define something in a certain way, doesn't mean that it can't be something different because
Exactly.
we haven't thought that.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So great.
Party on, Bill and Ted.
Be excellent to each
I'm
other.
going to have to stop somewhere and find that movie now. I bought Justice League today, and that's what I was going to watch after the show. But now I want to watch Bill and Ted.
Yeah, yeah.
Will you tell your story today about Walmart?
I have so many. What's my story about Walmart?
Dinosaur?
Dinosaurs at Walmart. Dinosaurs at Walmart.
Didn't you call and they said something about a dragon? Was I not?
Oh, okay. I am a tremendous admirer of the Jurassic Park franchise. Jurassic Park is to me what Star Trek is to Trekkies, what Star Wars is to Star Wars people. And is there a name for Star Wars people, Star Wars fans?
Nerds.
Pretty much.
I can't really talk. All right.
Who was that? That's Ogre.
Okay.
Pam Smith says she watched Bill and Ted last night. Great movie. How are you, Pam? We love you, Pam. So, all right. So, because of that, and Jurassic Park is actually a film that helped shape my career. It helped get me back into what I was interested in. And I have the entire toy line from all of the movies. And not to mention about 10,000 other non-related dinosaur toys. I collect toy dinosaurs. I love them.
They could have a museum of just dinosaur toys.
I could. And when my museum opens, I damn sure won't tell a couple of you where it's located.
Get 'em.
Or you can just walk me around and say, like, okay, this is what's over here.
Well, and I've done that one time. I had a beautiful visit with a little blind child.
Well, here's a dinosaur egg. Hold your hand out. Real
No, I need to bring Emma in here someday for him. My dinosaur egg,
Give
Emma.
him the dinosaur egg you brought tonight.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, I handed the blind man a styrofoam cup.
And if you laugh, you'll be burning in hell. But all right, so I'm with Jurassic World 2 that comes out in June. I've seen the product pictures of stuff online of the toys and the stuff that's going to be available, and there's reports that some of this stuff has actually been found at Walmart already. So as I was passing by earlier this afternoon, when I was in there for groceries, I went and took a beeline through the toy aisle, and I stopped this little teenage clerk and I said, "Hey, do you have any of the Jurassic World toys yet?" And he just kind of looks at me like a deer in the headlight, and he goes, "What's that?" And I said, it's toys from a movie that's going to come out this summer. And he goes, "Oh, you mean with dinosaurs?" And I'm mentally saying some really sarcastic things, but I'm like, yes, with dinosaurs. And he goes, "No, we don't have any of that, but we've got some dragons. Dragons are the same thing as dinosaurs." And I'm screaming in my head, "No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not."
If you want to get under his skin, start talking dragons.
And it's...
Dragons are cool.
Dragons are nerds. Dragons are... No.
Did you see Smog? Smog was
okay.
badass.
Smog was a badass, and those ones that Daenerys has on Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
But, okay.
And she gets naked a lot.
But I'm sitting, and it's like, okay, I have asked a simple question very nicely. Mm-hmm. And I get this ignorant, stupid answer, and I just... Because I have internal conversations.
You
and
have that
conflicts
whole
with myself.
Dexter monologue going in your head.
Yeah,
of like,
oh, yeah.
I would just love to.
No. And my stuff on Facebook kills. I mean, I think some people
It does.
take me way too seriously on
I
there,
like it.
but I get on there and I have a good time.
That's another game me and Josh have. We have found a brotherhood in a game we play on Facebook. Is called Stir Up the Trolls, and we do what Tina likes to call drive-bys on people's Facebook posts. We go into the controversial comments, we stir up a lot of shit, and then we're off to the next one. And then we sit back and we watch going,
Yeah, and sometimes it's fun because a lot of these Facebook people, they don't have lives. Kevin and I have lives. I have jobs. Kevin has
This.
Tina. He has this. It's fun to just poke people sometimes and just walk away.
It's fun.
It's
We have a lot of
it's
fun.
the saying,
No,
cool.
I'm going to hell.
Well, not for this. It'll be
Yeah.
for a lot of things.
I'm
All right.
making people.
And we
we'll
make
get-
up a lot of shit.
the best one, and I'll tell you this one just because it kind of backtracks into the paranormal. There was, I want to say it was on Cleaver Nights Talking. They were
love that.
somebody was mad at the Alvarado police and were just talking about them taking some elderly woman, yanking her out of her car, and just beating her senseless, putting her back in the car, and driving away.
Oh, that was Keen.
That was Keen. Okay,
Yeah, that was Keen.
I derailed that entire conversation because I told them that what happened, that was not an elderly woman. That was a werewolf in human form. And the Keene police were actually not Keene police. They were special members of the Monster Control Bureau who were well in charge of that situation, and they handled that situation as United States government protocol dictates. And I did just like that. I kept the serious. I used just enough big words. I dropped the mic and I checked in from time to time just to see how the wildfire had spread out. And I want to say
It's too easy.
It's too easy. It's
It is. It's
way
just
too
like-
easy.
It's like we should use our powers for good. We really should.
And good's fun, but sometimes evil's a little bit more alluring.
Well, but speaking of good, so we have to vote real quick on our Congo.
On our Kongamato.
I say yes.
I'm a full thumbs up.
I'm a full thumbs up. So
Right on.
we are 3 in favor of the Kongamato. Now it looks like Jeffrey's got another question for us. It says, speaking of dinosaur eggs, did y'all hear that story about a dino egg hatching in a shed and busting through the wall? No, I can't say I've ever heard that story, Jeff. The problem with dinosaur eggs are not giants like a lot of people think they are. And I think I'm going to bring Emma next week.
Yeah.
A dinosaur egg, even the biggest dinosaur eggs, were not much larger than cantaloupes. And this is now granted that's coming from an animal, from a sauropod, something that's half as long as a football field and 8 stories tall in some cases. But the reason that dinosaur eggs don't get bigger than that is that number one, the mama's not just laying one egg; she's laying dozens, maybe even hundreds of eggs, like a sea turtle does. Number two is that if an egg gets any bigger than that, the eggshell has to remain a thickness consistent with the shape and the
I never
baby
thought
inside.
about that.
Because if a dinosaur egg, all right, remember Land of the Lost?
Yes.
Remember when they found?
Oh, the giant.
They found what was the baby brontosaurus's name? Dopey. When they
Yes.
found Dopey's egg, and Dopey's egg's like 4 feet tall and
Oh, yeah.
that big around. That would be like having to bust through an eggshell as thick as our door over there. An infant animal just
Well-
wouldn't have the
Well, yeah.
to do that.
Think of a creature that, from foot to neck, is standing 8 stories tall. So where the eggs are going to be coming out. They're generally not animals that are going to squat down. So they got to be.
No, and they've got they'll have an egg depositor that will extend out of the cloaca, and chances are Mama just walks and lays.
I've
walks
seen
and
that
lays.
with lizards. That little tube deal
Mm-hmm.
that comes out, and them sea turtles do it.
Yeah, sea
too.
turtles do it.
They got like a little, kind of like on the movie Aliens.
That's creepy that you were watching that lizard a little too closely.
Now, and that's just one case of that's one example of dinosaur parentage. Other dinosaurs, the smaller dinosaurs, they were great mothers. They would build rookeries and lay their eggs all together, I mean hundreds at a time, and raise the infants up as part of the herd. And the herd would move into the rookery at one time of year. They'd stay there for a few months, just long enough for the eggs to hatch and the babies to become able to follow the herd through the rest of the way. And then they'd spin down through the rest of the country, and they'd come back up when it's time to reproduce and breed. And it's really neat. And then there's even evidence that some dinosaurs may not have laid eggs at all. Some dinosaurs may have given live birth.
Think like seahorses. I mean,
you know what's neat about a seahorse? The seahorse,
They're all male, aren't they?
No, there's both genders, but the male is actually the one that carries the babies.
and have you seen that thing give birth? Oh my.
Just shoots out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, well, they've got a pocket.
Yeah.
The babies just
Marsupial
swim out.
type.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of marsupials.
But I mean, what an amazing, when we start thinking about it, up until that point, until we've learned about those, we wouldn't have ever thought, the males don't carry.
And wouldn't you like to know what trick of evolution prompted that?
I wonder how many other creatures in the animal world that the males.
That's the only one.
Really?
That is the only one. That's the only one where the male gives birth.
Okay, here's my thought. What if a scientist mistook it and just said, "No, screw it. He's going to stay male."
Oh, okay. So it's
Watch these people. I'm going to troll them. Watch them.
Yeah.
No, that was actually a werewolf.
so it's KLA science right there.
That's an Audi for JJ. That is not an innie, and I mistook it for a penis, but we're going to keep it's still a penis. So it's.
And on that note, thank you for all
We're actually a few minutes over, so hey.
Got to start suspense.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who has tuned in to a very interesting episode of Johnson County Paranormal tonight. And we always love and appreciate our viewers. We will see you same time, same channel next week for part 2 of Prehistoric Survivors. Until then, I'm Professor Turner. He's the Sasquatch. This is Chad, and we will catch y'all on the flip side.
And stay tuned after the commercial break for the first of 2 episodes from Suspense. Then we have 2 episodes of CBS Mystery Theater. And after that, 2 more new episodes of Suspense, all from the 1940s and 50s.
Right on.
Right on.
Good times.
Party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth.
Wayne's World. Excellent.